Dr. Jazz.
I wanted to start, Kit, with this. Like, since when are you in Berlin, and how's the Berlin scene been treating you? You know, it's like, I guess, the scene in Europe right now. So
Yeah, I've been here 3 years,
already,
and
okay.
yeah, which is a surprise to me every time I say it because I feel like I've been here 20 minutes, um, but it's great. I've been moving around a lot in different parts of the city, and now I'm more settled in Schöneberg, which is in the southwest. But a lot of the really interesting things are happening more in like Neukölln or Kreuzberg or Prenzlauer Berg in other parts of the city. So I've just been going to see gigs, going to see. I already know quite some people here, but every time I go out, I meet like twice that amount in new people again. So it's really exciting because I was in London for a long time, for like nearly 20 years. And of course, there's always new people coming into a big city, but to be completely overwhelmed with like a whole load of new people, also from different scenes, like not just the straight ahead scene, but free scene, and also kind of the classical scene or contemporary classical scene.
Yeah,
it's really nice to just be swimming in a huge lake of unfamiliar faces, and everyone's very friendly and welcoming, and everything's pretty chill in that way. Like people just, it's very natural how you meet people here. And if you're just there, if you're seeing gigs and if you're present, then you can't help but kind of fall into the river with them, which is a really nice vibe. So yeah, I'm starting to really like it here a lot, finding my feet.
How come you decided to go to Berlin? I mean, you kind of became like a mainstay of the London scene, I guess. You know, when I check out the records I have you on, like you connected with the Elders and obviously your stuff. What was the decision based on?
Yeah, well, I didn't want to just live in one country my whole life, and I think I had come to a point where I would either like really settle in one place and never leave, or to take the jump, because I think to move country for the first time at like 37, it feels like it gets a lot harder after that point, especially when you've got family and bigger commitments and things. So it felt like sort of a really good time to challenge myself in that sense. And I started playing a lot in the European, in the mainland of Europe. I was spending most of my time traveling anyway, and then just being in the UK kind of to see my friends and hang out and spend all my rent. And then I thought, well, why not like really jump into that scene that I'm already kind of part of through gigging, and like see what else can come of it musically. And it was like I guess it was a desire for some new things, but also Brexit. I'm slightly running away from that, and just it became very difficult. Well, not impossible actually, but it became a little bit harder just to sort of be a touring musician based out of the. My best mate James Madron, the drummer that I play with a lot, he's still there, and he makes it work. So it's obviously possible, but I don't know. There's also something about the mindset of just that whole Brexit period. I just felt like, no, I want to try. I want to try and think bigger than my present life, and learn a new language and to stretch myself a bit. It's been great. Like I've started playing a lot more. I've started playing different since I've been here as well, which was also the desired effect, like to become bigger, or not bigger, but to become more open and have a wider set of influences and listen to new things and get really hungry again. And that's happened since I've been here, so I'm really happy about that.
In what sense playing different? Like playing more open stuff? Or I mean, because Berlin scene kind of, I mean, I know so many guys there, and it's investigating this kind of lots of open playing and complex music also, but like in what sense did you change
Yeah, definitely in playing more freely improvised music. I mean, just completely freely, like because I was already kind of playing quite complex written things, but trying to be as free as possible on them. But of course, it's just a completely different thing. So I was doing that in the UK already a little bit. People like Andrew Lyle and John Edwards and Mark Sanders and things. But that is also different everywhere you go, of course. I mean, it's different person to person, importantly. But also, like, collectively, there are sort of just general ways and bits of different ways that people use different bits of language and things. So yeah, that's one. But it's hard to sort of say exactly how it's changed, other than that it's just got a bit broader by meeting lots more people. And maybe I would have still met those people while still being in the UK. But I think something about being here is making me a bit more porous and a bit more open and looking at myself. I got really fed up with my own playing after a couple of years of being here, because I recognized how sort of limited it had become in a way, especially in terms of aesthetic and kind of approach like that. So I think I don't know, maybe I still would have got fed up of it in England, probably, but I got fed up of it here in an inspired way of wanting to do something about it. And I went out and I met a really lovely friend of mine now, an organist called Jack Day, he's the organist at Luisenkirche in Charlottenburg and Nikolaikirche in Mitte, two really nice organs, and also churches which have rooms with pianos and things like that. And so I could start practicing on organs and pianos, and just set myself up with some things here. And yeah, it was like having to kind of build that back up again in the way that I had in London already. It was so effortless in London, because it over 20 years had just grown into something like that. But having to work to build that back up again was really nice, because I could make slightly different choices of exactly who and how and what. And so that has been really gives me a lot of energy, that. And also doing that whilst having a new family, there's so much newness that it was great. It was very confronting and bringing lots of things out that I wanted to really look at and understand, and then that of course helps the music, you know.
Sure. Has it influenced also your writing? I mean, two questions, kind of. Is the trio with Peter and James still alive? And have you been preparing something new with them? And what your writing stuff? You know, I listened to your stuff since Troika, which is like 15 years ago already. You know, and the Golden, and you know, Julian Arguelles, who I played with a little. He told me about you. And like,
cool.
How was
Julian?
Yeah. We've played together quite a lot. So,
cool.
How has your writing changed? And you know, what's happening with the trio?
So with the trio, we released a record last year under Enemy on a label called We Jazz, and we've just done. I mean, we're always gigging and we're always putting new material in. That band, we've started sort of, because for a long time we were playing music that was a bit too hard for us, and we were like grappling with that, and that was kind of what was fun about it. And then at some point we became comfortable with not only that set of music, but also that way of playing in our way that we built up together, because we've been playing 10 years now. Which is probably the longest. I mean, that and Troika are the longest two sort of bands I've had, I think. And so we're always trying to look at ways of keeping it fresh and keep challenging each other and ourselves and growing and things. And now it's there's started to become a lot more open playing within it, and also trying to find the freedom, not just in terms of being reactive to hard material. That's a certain type of freedom of like you're being so challenged that you have to problem solve in the moment. That's like a form of freedom in a way, or it can be if that's something you enjoy, but also not being the only way to achieve this kind of like exciting idea of being very present, but also being able to be present on material that's not so light speed or so complex, but still finding a way where it still feels like us. It's got our energy in it, and so that's sort of the challenge at the moment. We just did. We did a couple of nights in the Bird's Eye in Basel.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
and we recorded both nights, and I think we're going to try and make a live record out of that, because the recording came out nice and they were good gigs, and that sort of marked like the end of a little period of growth for that band as well, where we're all trying to change up our language a bit. So that's alive and kicking happily, that band. They were also the middle of this large ensemble thing that I did called Dr. Snap, which was it was a Bimhuis commission at Amsterdam, and it was the trio plus Reinier Bass on guitar, Ben van Gelder on alto sax, Robin Finker on tenor sax, Betsy Persglove on trumpet, Ketia Ringerkarhon on flute, Vesta Moinavison on drums, and Sun Mi Hong on drums. So it's 3 drummers. It was bonkers, yeah. So that's a live record that came out a few weeks ago.
Really? Oh shit! Okay, I have to find that. Fantastic.
It's quite a small release on Bandcamp, so it was not because it was Anyway, it's out there. So they've been quite central to a lot of things that I've been doing, and because I've been moving into a slightly different world in my own interests anyway, that obviously feeds into the trio and how we work with that, the 3 of us. And then the question you were saying about writing, right? Like how's it changed writing? Well, that's an interesting one actually, because the Dr. Snap thing was all really complex material, with trying to find the freedom within that. That was the sort of the game, the search, and it was very demanding. Also having 3 drummers playing complex rhythmic stuff, it was bonkers. But the challenge was I was trying to make it as challenging for me to write for and for us to all play, and this kind of idea that adversity kind of brings out something different in you, which I'm not in that phase anymore, but I was very much then. And I am very happy with the results, but that, of course, makes you write in a very certain way. And I think having done that and having like sort of gone through that into something else, I think that the something else is now affecting my writing in a different way, where it's I've been listening to some Cecil Taylor records recently, also listening to the composition, where you get these, like, you have like a few horns playing a rubato melody and everyone's playing free underneath, and and then it stops the melody, and then there's like a solo, and then there's another bit of melodies. No internal repeats of this thing. It's like all long form writing, and just lots of big unison melodies, and not necessarily like clever hits, but like the accompaniment of the melody is just open. So it's like the role of the rhythm section is incredibly open, rather than the music that I've been writing, where you might have like rubato melody, but also like a lot of detail in these rhythm section parts. Because that's like particularly where I connect with Petter and James on. But as I've started to play with especially different bass players and drummers, and hanging with different people and talking about music, and those sort of things have changed a bit. So I guess I've always kind of tried to write with no chord symbols. I did that since I was 25 or something like that.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, it's always like counterpoint, like, so all the chords are inferred. That's the idea, because that's also how I like it when people give me stuff like that, because I always think like then you're building in some choice, and that can still be quite complicated, but there's still an openness in that question somewhere. Some people get really pissed at that, though.
Sure.
When you don't give them a chord symbol, but that's fun too. So yeah, that's always been the way. But I guess like finding ways to still feel like it's got a rhythmic ident, like a unique rhythmic personality to it, because that's important to me, or I find that fun, but not making it like the defining feature, which I think can also be a thing in. Maybe it's different a little bit in the US. That I don't know. I'm kind of ad-libbing here, but I think often over what I observed over here, definitely in the UK, but in mainland Europe, which is like a continent. That's a crazy thing to say. I'll just say Germany, because that's where I am. But it's like if music has like quite a strong rhythmic component to it, it very quickly becomes defined on those terms only, because it's the sort of because maybe there isn't so much music that's dealing with like really with rhythmic complexity, versus how much music there is dealing with like harmonic complexity or textural complexity or other areas which maybe are more maybe more common. I don't mean common, that sounds bad, but I mean commonplace.
Yeah.
And in my own music as well. But so I think it's easy for something to sort of become defined by if it's got a complex rhythmic component to it. But that being said, it is also very easy for me as a composer to present the rhythmic complexity as also the defining thing also first, because it's the thing that's sort of fascinating in a way and less commonplace.
Yeah.
So you also kind of fetishize it in a kind of way as the composer as well. So finding a way to really bed that and integrate it in a natural way, in the same way that you would with the melody and harmony and texture and whatever, and for that to sort of feel cohesive with everything else. That's what I'm trying for. But yeah, and also questioning these sort of processes of like, what does freedom sound like? Ridiculous question, but I mean,
no,
like,
it's not. It's true, man. Yeah, yeah.
You're like, what are all the different freedoms that are possible in a piece, and like because and all the different sounds that can have, and also like how you can facilitate players accessing freedom within themselves on play, or how they can bring freedom to your music, and how to control and not control, when to let go, when to hold on tight. These of composition as well as playing.
Yeah,
I think these are all things that I'm kind of thinking about, but I don't sort of when I'm actually writing, I just write. I don't think about any of this stuff. I just try and get stuff down on paper, and then once it's presented to the band, then I start becoming more aware of if there's some kind of direction in my writing without me thinking about it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, then you
find
can start tweaking it and changing it. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. How did you said the trio is alive already more than 10 years, and how did the connection with ECM happen for you, and working? I listened to Vermilion today, just in the morning, made breakfast, and was thinking about the piano tradition on ECM, which is obviously, especially the piano trio with Keith and Chick and everyone. I mean, it's like, I don't know who's not there, like to Craig Taborn, to, and how was it working like with Manfred, and how did you get in touch with ECM, and how was that like for you? I mean,
yeah, what an amazing thing to exist, ECM. And I think of all these records that I used to love and still love, and I'm still discovering, and such a huge chunk of them were on ECM.
Yeah.
And recorded by Manfred. That's my daughter asking where I am. Yeah, I mean, it was amazing working with him. The way it happened was I was playing with a Norwegian drummer called Thomas.
Thomas
Stronen.
Yeah.
I was about to say Thomas Stanko. I was like, I don't play with Thomas.
That would have been cool as well, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have loved that. Oh my God. But anyway, it was also lovely playing with Thomas Stronen. And he had a record come out on ECM. And through that, I think Manfred heard my playing. And then Manfred was meant to do the session but couldn't make it. So Sun Chung came and produced the record. And then we met, me and him, and we started talking. And it was through him that I did my first records there as a leader, whatever, as my own records, my own music. So the organ record, Obsidian, it was Sun's suggestion to do a solo organ record, which is very cool. Yeah. And I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't been asked, because I was terrified at that point. I'd only just started playing organ again for the first time since I was a kid. So I felt very exposed doing that. But it was good he pushed me, and I was really happy that he did.
Beautiful record, yeah.
Thank you. And that was really fun. So, I mean, I just sort of kept making a couple more records with Sun, and then he left ECM to make his own label called Red Hook, and which I've done some things with also. But and I've carried on doing things with Manfred. One of them was Vermilion, and that's the only record I've done where he was present at the session.
Okay.
Just finished another one with Norma, like Norma Winston, a duo record, but he couldn't make that. He was sick, unfortunately. But so the only experience I've had so far with Manfred in the studio was Vermilion. It was brilliant. I mean, I'm like not a natural candidate for like being produced, as most jazz musicians probably are not. So like headstrong and it's also improvised, so you kind of just want it to be what it is in the moment, and all these things like the feeling that you're being pushed in different directions by someone that's not playing the music is not a natural one for me. But he's done it so much with such amazing musicians, and his ears are so on point. That it was very easy to accept guidance from him, because it felt very everything he said was exactly how we were feeling, or unlocked something, and he didn't say very much. It was really just like, yeah, we got that, or try another one, or it was very soft touch, you know. But without it, we would have missed it, I think. And it did, even just by working with ECM, shaped the way that we prepared the record and what kind of music we wrote for it. And also the choice of room was huge, like to record it in this Lugano theater, with no headphones, no separation, all live in a room which James plays loud. It just destroys everything, so he had to play quietly for the whole record. So already that changes our band sound hugely from the first record. So it pretty much ruled out playing beats, which was the whole thing of the first record. So, but instead of being like, oh, that's our sound or whatever, which would have also been like a justified response, I think we all love ECM so much, and we're so excited about the experience. We're like, no, let's just jump in with that aesthetic and see what we can make. See what it sounds like when we change that, and see what we get from it. And we learned so much from that as a band as well, about dynamics and color and texture and ensemble playing. And we play completely differently on gigs now, I would say. I mean, not completely differently, but we just added a lot, the experience, and also sort of mixing it and going into detail of all of that stuff. It was a really good experience. So he's a special chap. Special skills.
Yeah, interesting. Who were the players that got you excited for, you know, doing what you do now, like for jazz or improvised music? I mean, did you hear like a specific record, or was there like a moment that you said like, shit, I wanna do that? Or
you mean like sort of back when I first discovered jazz?
When was that?
Yeah, I had a funny route to jazz. I mean, I guess everyone does. But I was in a choir singing like old choral music, like Palestrina and Tallis, as well as like we used to sing Arvo Pärt as well, and like everything in between, Benjamin Britten, blah blah blah. And I would sing in this choir like 6 times a week, sorry, twice on Sunday. It's like an intense, proper like boys' choir, traditional thing. And I mean, it was amazing musically. It was quite intense for a 9-year-old. But what it did do was put me around the organ a lot, and I would hear the organ getting played. And also there was a really good organist there, still is, a guy called David Dunnett, who could, and a lot of the other organists that were in that would come in and out, the scholars and things, they were all really nice improvisers. And I'd hear it, just lots of people improvising on the organ all the time, and hear this kind of this feeling of like discovering something as they're playing, even if it's just like improvising while someone's taking like the incense to the table, and that takes so long, and you have to just take the theme of the hymn and extemporize it a bit longer. But I thought that stuff was so cool to be that on top of everything, that you can just, you know, like orchestrate and fill a mood with whatever you're feeling like. So already I was kind of hooked in that process. Quite a defining thing about how I think about improvising as well, like this sort of thing of recycling and like taking themes and twisting them and blah blah blah. It's a very specific organ skill set as well. So anyway, I started showing real interest in the organ and improvising. My mum's a piano teacher as well, so there was always piano in the house. My dad plays like a bit of amateur organ at the church on Sundays, kind of thing. And then I got past like an Oscar Peterson CD, which was Night Train, and then by my mum, and then my neighbor gave me the Cologne concert. And then I got like a Herbie Hancock compilation, which had like all of this cool stuff on it. Had like Dolphin Dance, Speak Like a Child, Watermelon Man, Chameleon, like all the big hits, but from all the different periods. So I was like, wow, this is all one guy, you know, through all of these different sounds. So, and then that led me to check out all of those records from all the different, you know, one-track wonders. And then it so quickly, as it does when you're that age, just descended into complete obsession of jazz. When I was maybe like 13, I think, something like that. 13. And then I had a local guy was teaching me some basics of like left hand comping, like rootless voicings and things. And he had a band that used to play at the local pub, so I'd go and sit in and play like Sandol or something. And it was the most exciting shit like ever to me. And it would like his brother was the bass player, electric bass player, and he'd record it all on cassette and then give it to me to listen back to, and be like, oh, I want to do that different. And yeah, it was so obsessive. And I had some friends also in Norwich that were also equally obsessive of it in that way. And we just totally dorked out on it for years like that. And it also became like the kind of bedrock of my my social life as well, because it was such a huge like linking thing to me and my friends. We'd go and see festivals and like hike to, you know, I remember we all went to Umbria Jazz when we were like 14, me and these guys, George Crowley, saxophone player in London, and in that festival we saw like Elvin Jones, Bill Charlap, Wayne, Herbie, Keith Jarrett, like proper bucket list. Many of them were ticked off when I was 14 on that one trip, you know. So anyway, I'm getting sidetracked, but
beautiful.
Then I went to music school when I was 14 at the Purcell School, which is like an intensive kind of music school for some classical, but mostly some jazz and composition, which I got some amazing lessons with. Which I was just really lucky my whole life, really good teachers. I never really had anyone that like wasn't inspiring or didn't kind of pump me up and give me a lot of self-belief. And they all made it really exciting. So I feel like I'm very lucky in that sense, because it's could have super easily not been that, you know.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
In the middle of like Norfolk, in the early 90s, there's no reason why you should get like these guys in the pub. They loved jazz so much, they lived for this, like these nights at the pub, playing these gigs. So I was just always around this excited energy with the music, and that's like ingrained in me now. So yeah, and then I just started getting more and more into into the history of the music when I was studying at the Purcell, and I went back into things like Bud Powell. I got really obsessed with Bud Powell.
Wow.
I like transcribed most of that record, The Amazing Bud Powell. And then through that period, it was sort of, like Red Garland, Wynton Kelly.
Oh, you did everything. Classics.
A lot of Keith Jarrett. In that period, Brad Mehldau I started getting into, and Chick, only the album Now He Sings, Now He Stops. At that point, I was like already snooty and opinionated at 14. that softened up later on. And then I went to university when I was 18, like the academy in London.
Okay.
And then even more stuff. I started getting into Tristano, Lee Konitz, like this cool, the sort of West Coast stuff.
Yeah.
And thinking about line, and all through different periods, there was like things that I was focusing on without realizing. But when I was 14, I was like, I just wanted to I wanted to be a pianist that could harmonize anything, because there was this guy a little bit older than me at school who could just, you do that thing where you sit down and just play like beautiful chords around a melody, and he could do it really effortlessly, and he just knew every single chord voicing, not every single one, but like he knew all the ones that you wanted to know when you're 14. So that became like really the obsession at that period, was just harmony. And I think because it was so early for me, that became such a bedrock of stuff for me to draw on forever. And then when I went to music college, it became about line, playing good lines. And then later, once I left college, it became about time. And these were all this, and then, you know, who I was hanging out with and who I was playing with, it was greatly influenced by what sort of period of fascination I was in. Like when I started playing with Petter was when I started really digging into not just like rhythmic intricacy, but also just time, just having what good feel is. You know, like this kind of mysterious kind of, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it started just. I have this feeling it could have started with any record, really. I have to, because every single thing that I heard, I was so fascinated with, even if I didn't like it. Even hearing like really sort of dodgily recorded bootlegs of Bird and Dizzy and whatever, and it's like I was still so hungry for it.
You mentioned London and studying in London, and we mentioned Troika before. And how did you get slowly immersed into the London scene? And you know, kind of how did Troika happen? And I think it's such a cool band. You know, I mean, obviously, I love Chris. That's why I kind of dug into it. And how did then that lead to Golden? You becoming a band leader and the trio?
They were kind of at the same time, I guess. Chris was at the academy, and so was Josh. So we all met at college. It was a college band. Same as Golden. Same as like James and Callum. We were all at the academy together.
Oh, okay.
In slightly different years, but like all hanging together. And I remember Josh and Chris wanted to have a band that was a bit like Sco and a bit like Wayne Krantz kind of thing. And they were sort of, I think the bass player didn't show up. I think that's the story that we tell. I think that's how it was. I can't even remember now. And but I did show up, and there was a Rhodes there, so we started just playing. Chris had already written like a load of cool music, basically, in the way that he does. I mean, he writes music like no one else really. Yeah, so he'd written a load of cool stuff, and we just sort of all sight read it together, and then we're like, oh fuck it, this is fun. Good combo of people, which it was and is. I'm sure one day we'll end up doing it again. In fact, me and Chris are making a duo record in July.
Really? Oh, fantastic!
Yeah,
man. Beautiful.
We're gonna make a free record.
Oh, okay. There's the Berlin influence. Like,
because we used to play free all the time. We used to do duo gigs quite a lot, like piano and guitar, but and that felt like the next challenge for us, because we both like writing a lot, and there's a way that you can just make things a little bit easier for yourself sometimes by writing a good tune and then just kind of playing good over it.
Yeah.
But with duo particularly, like when you really trust someone, like we trust each other musically, then like why not like properly jump off the cliff together and see what happens, you know? So I think that's where we're at. So we're gonna do that. Yeah, so that and then we just kept playing, and that was like a real collective band. I was lucky to have like a proper collective band like that early on, because often this thing of like being a band leader or it being your own project can be a bit solitary, I think. I don't do that. Yeah, exactly. And for you to have to write on the music, to have to kind of direct it in some way. I mean, not that any of those things are actually true. You don't have to do any of that. I mean, it's just a band. But you feel like that, especially when you're a bit younger and can't get good gigs and things like that. But it was really nice for us to have a thing that we're all excited about, and it wasn't one person's name on the front of it. It's like we'd all like do stupid artwork for it, or like make silly posters or silly videos, and it was another like extension of the social thing as well, as much as anything, and meet up to rehearse and mess around. It was a very silly band. I mean, the music is also very silly, but it was very silly in its makeup of people. But yeah, I loved it. It was like some of my favorite stuff I ever did was with those guys, and we played so much over such a long time. So it was great. And then at the same time, like I was playing a lot with James and Callum. James was in my year at college. We used to live together. So, I mean, I can't actually imagine like what my playing life would be without him, because he's been such a huge part of nearly everything that I've done. It feels weird when I play with a drummer that isn't James, basically. Not weird. Like I play with Andrew Lyle quite a bit, and I play with Jonas Bergwinkel, and so I play with some amazing drummers. Super lucky. Did a thing with Andrew Cyril recently and Bill Frisell for Sun Chung's label. That's coming out in October.
Whoa, man! What's that? When was that? How was that like? I mean, Frisell, he's like my hero. How did that happen?
Me too. Yeah, Sun Chung set it up for his label Red Hook, and it's pipe organ and guitar and drums.
Whoa!
Super fun, yeah. And we all kind of wrote stuff for it, and then there was some improv as well, and that was really fun.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
So I play with some amazing. I'm like incredibly fortunate to play with cool drummers. It's and also particularly like Jonas. I've been playing with him for actually like a long time now. I kind of forget that it's a long time, because just you forget when time passes. But yeah, with James, I just like we grew up through the music together, like learning the same stuff at the same time, and we were in like so many different bands together as sidemen as well, and I think we've just built up a language together to the point where it becomes challenging for us sometimes, because we can take the easy route out of things and end up repeating ourselves, and so we work hard on that as well, about like trying to push each other still, and that's like quite a big thing in Enemy as well, of making sure it doesn't get lazy. So anyway, we were playing a lot at that period with that trio with Golden, and that was just a demo, that record. It was meant just to get some gigs. Yeah. And then Christine Allen, who was Basho Records at the time, entered it for the Mercuries. It's like, oh shit, I didn't even know what the Mercuries was. She just entered it. And then we got this nomination, which was like crazy too much for us at the time, because I was still in college, you know. I didn't know what was what. But I was also in a band called Empirical at the time, which was that was actually touring quite a lot. We were doing like Newport Jazz Festival, New York Jazz Festival. We're doing like quite big gigs with that band. So in a way, that was the thing I was really busy with in that period. And then the trio was just sort of for my own tunes, for my own amusement, and for playing with my friends. And then this thing happened, the Mercury thing, and then suddenly it was like a band that should have a career trajectory and like blah 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 shit I know nothing about, you know. I'm feeling all these pressures. It's not like, I mean, only from people that wanted it to succeed, but still, it's just my young brain. I was still in student brain. I just wanted to work on my playing through it. I wasn't like at a point where I could think about anything beyond that with the band yet. But then slowly over time, it morphed into like a quintet after a while, and then a sextet, and then after a while, that was like, as influences changed, then that changed sort of into Enemy, I guess, a little bit. Although it's a completely different band. But I met Petter, and then I was fascinated by. I saw him play with Django Bates in that beloved trio, and I was so fascinated by how they dealt with this rhythmic complexity in a way that sounded so free. I was like, man, I want that. So I wrote like a whole set of music to play with Petter, basically, and James, obviously. And then I just called him. I was like, oh, I think we hung at a festival at Cheltenham maybe, and he'd done some stuff with Troika because he liked Troika. Because Django showed him Troika, small world kind of thing. And then I was like, I've written all this music. I would love to try and play it with you. It's hard to say no to that if someone's written new music.
Exactly, yeah.
And he had some new stuff that he'd written as well. So it was super challenging for me at the time. I'm still now, but this kind of polyrhythmic thing, reference rhythms kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was like I did a huge amount of like work and learning on that like pushed a lot of it was confronting that early period of Enemy in a really good way, in a way that I feel like I'm now in a different zone, in a different place. And that's how I knew, like, oh, this is a good band to be in. This I'm growing, and then the three of us became really good friends, and now I can't imagine why we would ever not continue playing. It's like I feel like we could go in most directions that we sort of feel like checking out. That's nice. It's super nice. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. You mentioned Django. How was the feeling on the London scene back then? You know, I've spoken to so many of the older guys, you know, like from Henry Lauder to Stan Saltzman, all these Julian, kind of the previous generation, Mark Lockhart. There's so many players.
Yeah.
And how did you connect with the elders, and how was the feeling in jazz community in London? You know, you played with Julian, obviously Tetra and Django. Like, how did that happen for you?
That's nice that you bring me back to that, because they were such a huge part of that earlier period for me as well. And I just didn't mention it now, but I would like to. So I'm happy that you asked me about it. Because at one point when I discovered Django, which was when I was in academy, I discovered Loose Tubes and Human Chain, Delightful Precipice, all his bands from that period, which completely mind-blowing, still completely mind-blowing now. Yeah. But when you haven't heard it before, it's like something else completely. And I couldn't believe there's like all these guys that are in London. They're like, you know, this music, which is also revered like around the world. That music, it's that period of British jazz is super well loved and known, as well as like the older gang before that, even like Kenny Wheeler and Norma Winston, Stan Saltzman.
Yeah, sure.
I remember who were a big influence, of course, on Django and Ian and Mark, and even if it was to like do something different, it's still like a strong kind of, you know what I mean? It's still like a strong influence. There's a lot of love between those scenes, and where Evan fits in there as well, and also
you have the free scene, obviously, and the South Africans, I mean,
exactly, Louis Maholo, and so it was. That whole part of the scene was fascinating to me, and I remember at one point I just wanted to play with. I'm super greedy in that sense. I just wanted to play with everyone because I wanted to like know how to like play. I wanted to know what the magic thing is about that music that I loved so much, and I wanted to be able to like feel it and play it myself. And so very quickly I started playing with Stan Saltzman.
Oh, really? Okay.
With him we
know that. Okay.
Yeah, we did like 1, 2, 3 records together in a band of his called Neon.
Oh, really? I don't have these. Okay, I have to find that. Cool.
Really kind of early things for me, but I learned a huge amount from him, particularly in this old school way of like never telling anyone how to play. Basically, I love that. I've carried that with me of like, you can write wherever you want, and you can pick whoever you want to play together. But if you want the best results out of improvisers, like trust them to find their own way and put what you think needs to be on the page to facilitate that. And if you really need to put it into words, this is not a rule for anyone else, by the way. It's just for me that works really well with how I think about it. And it it was also how Stan was as well. So I think we really connected on that point in a big way. Same with Ian Bellamy, he's the same. Well, a lot of guys from that. I mean, they're not the same generation, but
from
different to me. so yeah, I really wanted to connect with them, and played a little bit with Kenny just before he died
You
through the
did?
academy.
Oh man, how was
Yeah.
that like? I love
It was
Kenny.
amazing. He was already quite old,
Yeah.
but he's sounded beautiful, and it was just an amazing experience to be.
Mm.
He was sort of in and out of the academy quite a bit when I was there, because Nick Smart was a really close friend of his. He's doing a biography of him at the moment.
Really? Oh, beautiful.
He's just
Okay.
finished. Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So much detail. Nick's got access to so many people that were so close to him. You know, Norma, Dave Holland, Stan. Jarrett. I mean, it's endless, that list of Kenny collaborators. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and also with then I discovered Loose Tubes as well, and I was like, man, I want to play with nearly everyone here. All of them were writers. That was what struck me with the Loose Tubes thing. Everyone was a composer. Like Mark had his own projects, Ballo, Arg, Django. Marv had his own bands, Spin Marvel, and like everyone had a thing. Eddie Parker. I mean, I played in Eddie Parker's band. I played in a band with Ballo. Used to dep in Mark Lockhart's band for a while. I played in Julian's band. I played in a commission by Django. I mean, and I used to ask Marv to play loads because I think he's absolutely amazing. Yeah. So yeah, it was just that was just like a very inspiring list of people that I wanted to play with and learn from. And I was lucky that I got to do it. I was sort of around at a time when they were around, and blah blah blah. So, and I sought it out as well. It was important to me, so I wanted to make it happen, and as well as Stan, and yeah, like I learned so many invaluable things. Also, like maybe slightly like UK centered ways of things about like this sort of weird middle ground between the European scene and the American scene, and having a lot of these like quite old school traditional kind of imprints from the US. And it's like Stan used to work on the boat, so he would play. Yeah. Exactly. He would play like I don't know how many weeks it takes to get to New York, but he would play that amount of weeks on the boat, and then he'd be in New York for like 2 weeks, and he'd go and see all the clubs, and he'd go and see like these like proper legends that are now not around anymore, back seeing them when they were shit hot, and then come back and play on the boat again. So, and also this Ronnie's thing of like people would come and visit and play there for like 3 weeks. And so like John Taylor, hugely important person for me. He taught me academy as well. Yeah. JT, he was like house pianist at Ronnie's. So he would play with like all these visiting Americans. So it's like this core American tradition is like so important to the London scene. I mean, in a way that some other European countries have that thing too, like I think Copenhagen does and Amsterdam. Yeah, but in London, it's somehow like a slightly different thing. I don't know. It's just its own thing, I guess. And it's the one that I know best because I was there. Yeah. And I know the other places less so. But it has a nice relationship with it where it's still pulling in this kind of European influence, like this classical music influence, and like this kind of free influence from the like Evan generation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and also like this connection between London and Berlin and Amsterdam, like ICP scene, also like von Schlippenbach and Protzmann, like this whole kind of cauldron together. Yeah, I don't know. It's but that scene that we were talking about, like Loose Tubes and Kenny and that old scene like JT and Stan. There were just some values about the music that I really enjoyed learning. One was that thing I said about Stan, just about not trying to control the things that you shouldn't be trying to control. Yeah, well, not shouldn't be, but that can lead to magic that you don't expect. You know, embracing that risk. JT is like a beautiful example of that. Just searching out the risk, not even like accepting it, but like embracing it and welcoming it and being sad when it's not there, you know. Yeah. Like I saw him like throwing musical grenades in situations so many times just to see what would happen, just to like be more present. Like something happens in music, someone gets lost, or like I don't know, or something weird happens in the form where a chord is different or whatever, and it's like you see his eyes light up because it's like, okay, now we're listening like for our lives, you know. Yeah. last time I saw him before he died, he was playing with his trio with Marv. I'm forgetting the name of the bass player, which is terrible.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's bad. It's gone now. but the bass player arrived super late for the gig, just before the start, and they started playing in Cologne this tune of his. I think it's the one that goes do 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 do. I can't remember. I might be messing that up. My brain's foggy today, but they start playing this tune. It's kind of complex, and they get into it, and I remember the bass player gets lost a bit, and I remember John's face was like he was playing, and he looked up like this at Marv. He was like, they both clocked that something was up, and John had a big smile, and he was like, and they started playing like even more into the weirdness and like pulling it around even more because there was this unstable element in it. It was like, yeah, game on. And Marv's the same as well. He loves it when like stuff's up in the air, and not when it's just like inaccurate for the sake of it, but like more like this like a game is afoot, you know. There's like a bit of drama going on, and it makes stuff happen, and it forces you to like rely that you have enough in the tank or whatever, or like that it's going to work out. You have to trust each other, and that's such a beautiful thing I got from that whole part of the scene. I'm sure it exists in every scene, but it's just they were the people that they were the people that taught me that, and I absolutely loved them for that. And then they were playing, and it lasted like quite a while. That it was like pretty like whoa, whoa, and it sounded amazing because you could hear like you were watching something unfold very elegantly as well. Like this is like very high level craft of like finding ways to sort of make it still sounds like amazing, and then they get back in, and then it's like right on the. They hit it like so hard once they're back in because of all of this journey that it took to get there, and it was an amazing lesson that remember me and James watching it being like masters.
I love those guys. All you mentioned, like I remember also when I first encountered Loose Tubes and you know Ian and Django and all these guys, like you know, incredible band leaders and composers. I was like, shit, man, that's incredible. That's like so such an integral part of the European scene also, I think. It's still slightly under, not so much heard, but you know, in the UK definitely that's like the thing for your generation, I think. So
yeah, it's hard to get out of the UK, I think, a little bit.
Kid, I will not take more of your time, but I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned so many records that are coming out for this year. What are still the plans for you for the upcoming months, and what's happening?
Yeah, I got some really fun stuff coming up. There's some things that are finished, but which I said already, but some things that are in process. I'm going to be doing a concert with Bill Frisell and the string quartet in Minneapolis in New York in the fall.
Are you kidding me? Lucky
and that's
you. Okay.
Yeah, lucky me, goddamn. So that'll get recorded, and I've got to write a load of new music for that.
Beautiful.
And then in BIM House, I'm doing like another large ensemble thing in January with some amazing players. I got a new group with Camilla Nebbia, a saxophone player from Argentina who lives here. And Andrew Lyle, the UK drummer. We have a band. We just made a record, and I'm going to be doing another solo organ record at some point soon. So yeah, it's like lots of things that are always kind of on the boil, like Enemy and just ticking over, and then these sort of commissioning new things, and it'd be fun. There's like some writing commissions. I've got an idea for a band I really want to do as well, but I need to find a way to make it happen because it's logistically like complex. But I've already written the music basically, so in my mind it has to happen. It's like it'll be like
who do I want it?
Forgetting Christmas if it doesn't happen.
Who do you want to play with? I mean,
say again.
Who do you want to have in the band for that one?
Well, it's people that I play with already, but it will be in a combination playing my music. So it's Nelson Varas, the guitar player, the Brazilian guitar player, lives in Paris. I play with him with Felix Sustrassen. I love his playing so much. It's amazing, completely unique. And I also love me and him built up like a way of playing together that doesn't get in the way of each other, but it's still quite like full and weird and cryptic and fluid. And then Thomas Morgan on bass. That's
wow, beautiful, man.
We've been talking about doing something, and I've written them a load of music to play. I just need to find a way to make it happen, basically. But I played with Thomas in a band with Emi Makabe, a trio, which I think we'll be recording for ECM as well.
Oh.
Yeah, so I mean,
man, that's a lot. That's a lot. Cool. New music, fantastic, man.
Yeah, it's fun. I just want to. I mean, I'm still really in the same state as I was back in that period that we were talking about, where it's just so many amazing people out there to play with, and I end up just writing music to play with these people, same as I did with Petter. It's like it just puts my imagination alight a bit, and then I write something, and then I want to manifest it. So
yes, that's fantastic. That's how we do it. Yeah, beautiful.
Exactly, that's the way.
Yeah. Cool, man. I'll
nice talking to you.
Leave you to spend time with your daughter now. So, but thanks again for taking the time, man. And I'll send you a link when this is out and everything. So.
Dr. Jazz.